for agency tactics. We're gonna give this just a moment for people to filter in, but you're probably watching this on replay as well, so we want to make sure we kind of get into it. If you are watching this live, I want you just to, or whether you're watching it live or on replay, go ahead and just type in the comment section here. Just type in. I'd like to get a temperature for who's here, whether you are an agency owner or you are a producer, wherever you sit in the agency. Maybe you're a CSR or a marketer or whatever. It doesn't really matter. But I'd like to kind of figure out who's here. Go ahead and type in the comments what you do in the agency. Just say agency owner or producer or CSR or marketer or however you want to designate your title. Go ahead and let us know who you are. We got a few folks that are joining us. We are really excited for today's episode of Agency Tactics, where we are with the one and only Brandon Smith from Missoula, Montana. Now, before we kind of get into it, I feel like there's a little bit of a backstory here. Brandon, so I am Brandon's best friend. I am his
True.
best. I'm his
True.
best friend, and I asked him to come on to the show here this morning because while he's my best friend, while I'm his best friend,
Whoa,
um,
whoa, 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 whoa.
I think, I think, uh, he brings a lot of value to today's show because Brandon has. How long have you been in the agency?
I think we're going on 19 years. But it's been 18 years, moving into 19, so almost
Wow,
2 decades.
almost 2 decades. And has it always been in the producer sales arena, whether it be sales management, like always in the PNC kind of arena?
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah, started doing some commercial service work into marketing, into personalized production, to managing property casualty, to now just overseeing all systems and strategies for the agencies. So have a little bit of experience with, life, health, Medicare, wealth management, but the bulk of my hands-on experience has been in the PNC channel.
Great. And so the reason why I bring that up is because you've spent the better part of almost 2 decades having to cut your teeth and figure out, quite bluntly and frankly, how do we get more customers to buy insurance from us? Is that a fair
Yeah.
assessment?
Yep.
Whether it was one-to-one sales, whether it was managing a team, whether it is managing systems and processes, at the end of the day, how do we get our producers and our team to get more signatures on applications and collect more revenue via sales? Fair?
Fair. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's been my focus since day one, quite honestly. Yeah.
So go ahead before we kind of dive into today's topic. Just while we kind of wait for a few more people to trickle in here, just kind of give us the 411 on you, and just give us the 30 to 60 second introduction there for us.
Yeah. Brandon Smith, Missoula, Montana, was the line leader once in second grade. Was fifth grade, was runner up for the alternate for the school spelling bee. Didn't quite make it in. Failed my insurance test twice. Third time I passed it. We're here in Western Montana. Have an agency that's writing in 18 states. And my passion is to motivate, encourage, challenge, not just agents, but people to be the best version of themselves possible. And it just happens to be that insurance is the industry we work in. That's the gateway to influence people and hopefully make their lives better.
That's awesome. So talk to us a little bit. Give us some of the metrics because people always want to know. You don't have to. It's always like that douchey question, but like give us the credibility stuff. So this much in sales, this much in success. Give us the success metrics.
Oh, wow. Numbers are so fleeting and can make them say anything. So a multi-time award winner with Safeco, President's Award winner. We are roughly, rough numbers off the top of my head, I want to say 11 million in property casualty. With our wealth management, life and health team, we've got 22 employees. Like I said earlier, we're operating in 18 different states, a lot of remote work. We have producers right now on our personal lines team that are generating $10,000 to $12,000 in revenue a month, which is phenomenal, which based on all my research saying is top 5% nationwide. So we've got a great team that's actually has numbers backing up their data. We're very has numbers backing up their data. A bit redundant there. We have the data to back up and support their numbers. We get roughly 6,000 to 7,000 online leads a year. Very dialed in on our automation, our follow-up. Thanks to Better Agency, we're making contact with 92% of the online leads we receive and closing just over 50% of those leads. And so we have a phenomenal team who is doing way better than I was when I was just producing.
So that's interesting. So you get a ton of leads. You got a ton of stuff coming in. What is that all from pretty much one lead source, or how are you guys generating those leads?
We're getting leads from Dave Ramsey, our own internal digital marketing campaigns, Facebook, YouTube ads.
What's the split?
Referrals. We're very heavy Dave Ramsey, and we have just found a way to make that work. I know it's a love-hate relationship for agents. Some of you love them, some of you don't. We have found a way to maximize leads, and so I would say we're 85% of leads we receive come via Dave Ramsey.
Okay. Stuart Ferris wants to know what the height and weight is if we're going down the measuring tape here.
Yeah, does the bell ring like Colin Coward here? Brandon Smith, 6'4", 210 pounds. Ding.
Okay, so the whole reason why we're here, I feel like that's a good intro. People are probably starting to tune in here. We got some folks joining in the room. The whole point of this session, we'll probably go anywhere between 60 and 90 minutes. Check in, check out as you need to. Watch the replay. We'll send it out to everybody who's on our email list. But the whole point of this conversation today is, and the way I explain it to Brandon is, we always want to go like 2 or 3 layers deeper than what you would get on a normal podcast. It's not polished. It's not as fancy, but what we want is we want to get down to the nitty gritty. We want to get the meat off the bone and really kind of dive into these tactics and these strategies that people can start to implement today. And so we want to think high level stuff, but we also want to think more towards the ground and say, okay, this is what we do as a tactic that aligns with the strategy, or vice versa. This is the strategy. This is the tactic that we have to deploy. And the reason why we brought Brandon on is Brandon is a really great sales trainer, producer sales trainer for the insurance space. He manages and has managed a large team on his own, and now he helps other producers and agency owners in their sales and production. So real quick, you'll see us just kind of plug a few. We'll plug this just a little bit throughout. Brandon has a producer development program as well as a producer planner, and I'm going to bring this up on the screen, Brandon. But I'd like to, I'd be curious if you would, just as we kind of get into it a little bit, let us know a little bit more about. I had it open here. Let us know a little bit more. There we go. About the planner, let us know about the program, and then we're going to kind of get into it here a little bit there we go. You guys should see my screen now. You go to producerdp.com/2022. Just give us the lowdown really quick before we get into the tactics and everything that people can do for their sales team.
Yeah. The backstory is coming into 2021. At the beginning of the year, when everyone's setting their goals and resolutions for the new year, I wanted to set goals, but I wanted my goals to be simplified. I wanted just simple, easy to track goals. And I had some fun goals. One of my goals this year was to read 2 books this year. 2. Because that's more than double what I read last year. And it's not so much that I hate reading, it's the opportunity cost. For me to sit down and take a book and read it, there's so many other things I could be doing. And then when I am reading, I find myself just not comprehending what I'm reading because my mind is somewhere else. So I set for myself the goal to read 2 books this year. And throughout my calendar and planning and being intentional about when I'm going to read, I'm at, 15 or 16 books completed this year, just because those habits have been developed inside of me. Another one of my goals this year was to not step foot into a Walmart. Here we are in October, and I've failed. I've been in Walmart twice, once in Florida because I needed to get ibuprofen for my daughter, late at night, and second time was had a flat tire, and there was a Walmart right across the street at 11:30 at night. So I've been in Walmart twice this year. But on a more serious note, I wanted to live 2021 without hurry. I found that in my life, I was becoming somebody. I was in a hurry to become somebody I didn't like. Everybody I talked to in this industry, unless it's a family agency, entered the industry for one or two reasons, if not both: lifestyle and earning capacity. Yet we're busier than we've ever been, and we're still not satisfied or content with the results we have. And I think that's something that we need to fix. That's a pain point in our industry. Like, when is enough enough? When are we satisfied with our lifestyle? And so I found that my life, the greatest threat to my life, the greatest threat to our agency wasn't aggregators, carriers, software claim. It was hurry, the speed in which we were living life. And so I on my own throughout this last year have been very intentional on my time, my schedule. And so that, combined with what we launched last year, the producer development program, wanted to put together a planner for the new year coming up, 2022, that helps agents get the results they want in less time, so that they can have the lifestyle they dreamt of and still earn the revenue they try to create. So created a video course on time management, block scheduling, how to make that work. And like I said earlier, we've got producers in our office that are doing $10,000 to $12,000 a month in revenue and only working 30 to 40 hours a week.
And these are personal lines. These are personal lines.
Personal
Yeah.
lines, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reasons to that. I mean, one, we're grateful for better agency and the automation that we have running to reach out to those clients, but just being very intentional with their time. And so I thought, gosh, this is great. I need to share this with the masses. So created the planner, created what I would call the ideal work week for a producer on how to get the most out of their time with as little time invested as possible, so that they can achieve the lifestyle they want and build the wealth that they set out to build.
Fantastic. So that's good. So if people want to get the planner, go to producerdp.com/2022. Get that for yourself, get it for your whole team, and help them get on track. I think it's a great way. There's also lots of little cool things in there, as far as a resource, a directory resource for agents in other states, some really good insights, little nuggets,
Yeah.
little pearls of wisdom from other agents from across the industry and the country. So make
Can
sure
we
you get
talk about
that.
that real quick? That,
Sure.
that's something that I've seen as a pain point. A lot of online groups or networking groups I'm a part of, often you hear questions come up. People like, hey, I have a client. I'm in Washington and I have a client moving to Delaware. Who do you recommend?
Yeah.
And it's just kind of first come, first serve, tag yourself, say, I'll take it. But we really don't know these people. And we
There's no
want to make
vetting
sure,
process. Yeah.
yeah, we want to make sure our clients are well taken care of with the same care we would give them. And so and a lot of that is just at an agency owner level. I have members on our team, they'll shoot me a message on Teams and be like, hey, Brandon, who do you know in Colorado? We have a client moving. Who do you recommend?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's all just word of mouth. So what I did in this last year was sat down with 52 insurance producers, which worked out great, with 52 weeks in the year, 52 weeks in the planner, with the 50 states plus Washington, D.C. and Canada. Got a network of 52 producers that aren't just agency owners, that are connected, that are engaging, that are top performers, and vetted them. Really talked to them about what I expect. If I'm going to be telling agents nationwide that they can refer business to you, there's some, standards, some principles, some core values that you need to hold to. And so went through the planner this last year and came up with 52 of those, one in each state. So you're in Florida and you got a client whose daughter's going to college in Texas, we've got you covered. I can guarantee you, inside this planner, the directory, you're going to get your client to somebody who's going to treat your client well. And then throughout the planner, each of the 52 weeks, each page has a quote, a nugget, some inspiration, some wisdom from top performing producers, just to speak into your life. Maybe it's just to pick you up through the week. Maybe it's just what you needed to hear in that decision you have to make this week. But it's wisdom and knowledge shared with you from other producers that are just kicking butt nationwide. So really excited for that because I've never seen anything like that in the industry of a true directory of producers that you can trust.
That's awesome. So yeah, so go buy that. Go buy it. Just buy Brandon stuff. Just buy it. All right, let's dive into it here. And if you're new, make sure you subscribe to the channel. But let's dive into the tactics train. Brandon, I want to ask a question. Again, I want to get deep on this, and I want to get I want to break down things as much as we can. Let's talk first about where you see producers getting things wrong the most. Like what's some of the biggest mistakes that producers you find are making that's really preventing them from getting to that next level? Like what are the things that you find in common?
I think number one is lack of relationships. I mean, if you've ever heard me speak, I think the building relationships is the most important piece to producing, to the industry, that we've got to put people ahead of our products. And once we have that dialed in, figured out, you've heard me say it over and over, the difference between a contact and a contract is that letter R. It's relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a true relationship with someone, their heart follows, then their wallet, then their retention, then the referrals, and you create customers for life. So focusing on relational selling rather than just, quote an issue.
Yeah.
And so there's 100 ways we could dissect that and get into what that looks like. I think the biggest one is selling on value, not on price. And
Okay.
I know that's a challenge for a lot of producers out there of actually how do you make that change?
Yeah. So I mean, let's back that up just a little bit. So relationships. I think we all agree. If you have good relationships with people, people buy based on relationship, and whether it's commercial lines or personal lines, I think the concept is the same. I think one of the mistakes that we make is thinking like that we have to separate things for B2B to B2C when at the end of the day it's always still about relationships. Maybe the style changes a little bit, but at the end of the day you're still needing to build relationships with somebody.
Right.
So let me take you into somebody's office, right? And we're going to use the example. This is a personal lines producer. And again, if you have questions or if you want something specifically asked, make sure you put that in the chat here. But you have a producer who's in the office. Maybe they've been on the job for 2 to 3 months, brand new. Principal brings them in, and they know because Brandon sold them and everyone sold them. You got to go build relationships. Go build relationships, and people are going to buy from you based on relationships. And then they're going, okay, it's Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock. What do I do? like what do I do? How do I build relationships? Where do I go? I know that this is valuable, but like what specifically are some of the tasks that I should be doing or that I shouldn't be doing?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give you some ideas here and those watching that aren't big outside the box thinking. We often hear motivational speakers present on, you got to think outside the box. For the duration of this call, let's just think in the box. I think a lot of producers just need to learn how to sell an auto policy before they're worried about their digital marketing campaign. And so let's think inside the box. So these ideas I throw at you are going to sound very juvenile, but I promise you they work and they create disciplines.
The simplest things done consistently are going to yield results.
Exactly. And there's a crazy statistic out there that only 8 to 10% of licensed insurance agents stay in our industry for more than 24 months. And I think that's because of the question you just asked. We get hired, we pass the test, we have the head knowledge, we understand the insurance world enough to pass a test. But when the principal says, hey, I need you to go network.
I expect you to issue $50K in new business premium this month.
Yeah, we don't know what that means. Go quote an issue. Like, we don't know how to stir up leads. And that's something we struggle with 20 years into the industry. It feels like it's very, very complex. So the first thing I'm going to tell that producer to do in our office, 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, is grab a yellow pad. I want you to grab a yellow pad, and I want you to open up your phone, your contacts in your phone, and scroll through. I want you to write down 100 names of people that you can have a conversation with, that you can build relationships with. If you don't have 100 in your phone, open up your friends on your social media channels. I want you to get 100 names and then begin going through that and finding out who you can talk to about selling. But you have to use your relationship with them to sell. You can't just call them and say, hey, I got a new job selling car insurance. Can I give you a quote? Because you now just made it about price. they're only going to make the change if you can save them money. So you have to find different ways to build relationship. There's a story about the number one car salesman in America. He's got a book out about the secret to his success, and it's handwritten thank you cards. Every person he talks to on a daily basis, he sends a handwritten thank you card in the mail. He's got them in his truck. He's got them in his coat pocket, just note cards. He estimates that he sends out 3,000 to 5,000 cards a month. He talks about in his book how in the grocery store runs into a friend of his who used to be a linebacker in college and gave him a big hug. And he just put on the card, Brian, great seeing you in the grocery store today. Gosh, your hugs are going to break somebody's back. Keep loving people, in the mail. Just continually setting himself apart, of wowing people, making himself stand out, helps strengthens the relationship and creates top of mind awareness. And his cards that he sent out had, dealership logo on it, or I'd imagine Ford or Chevy's logo. But that's how you build relationships, is you continually be proactive in looking for opportunities to separate yourself from the rest of society and stand out in people's minds.
So there's a book. You mentioned something, going through your phone, finding finding 100 people that you can talk to that you already have a relationship with. I'm also going to plug another book here that I think that everybody in sales should read. It's a great book. This philosophy called the Dream 100 was coined by a man named Chet Holmes. So pick up his book, The Ultimate Sales Machine. Great book, easy read to get. And really, he talks about this too and talks about prospecting is find your Dream 100 client list. And this works for personal or commercial. It's work for anything, B2B, B2C. Find 100 people that you want to do business with and start to cultivate a relationship with them. Start to learn about them. Go on their social media. So practically speaking, you find 100 people you want to do business with. And if you're like a producer, I'm thinking, okay, I want to do business with the chief of police. I want to do business with the president of the parent teacher PTA board. I want to do business with the person who owns this restaurant, right? These influential people, these people that I have identified from the outside as people that I want to do business with. Now I'm going to go do some research. I'm going to start to look them up on Facebook. I'm going to look them up on LinkedIn. I'm going to look them up wherever I can, and I'm going to sort of stalk them a little bit, and I'm going to start to
Yeah.
key in on some of the things that are interesting to them. I'm not just going to connect with them on social media and then cold spam them. That's a waste of your time. But I'm going to actually start to learn about them, see what interests they are. So if you are a particular sports fan of this team and you're a Rabbit fan, I'm going to send you something from that, like with that team on there. I'm going to say, hey, hope you don't mind. I know you're a big fan of this team. I wanted to get this in your hand. And then doing some sort of light introduction, and then you're scaling up the relationship building from there. And by relationship building, you're also scaling up how you present yourself to them and your value proposition. I think it's very, very important. So I would check out that book. And it could be 100. 100 is just an even number. If you can do, if all you can get is 50, get as much as you can, because you're going to realize that maybe you're not going to do business with all 100 right then and now, but you're going to do business with them as
Yeah.
you do that. And as soon as someone falls off the list, put somebody else on there and start to keep that going, keep that going. And that's how you prospect. Building relationships is, you said it, you don't just call people up and say, hey, can I give you a quote? Because it makes it all about price. But another thing it does is it makes it all about you. And
Right.
how many know the worst relationships that you can be in is when the other person just makes it about them? That's an awful relationship. That's not a relationship at all. That's abuse. So making it all about them, making them feel special, building a relationship with them, providing value to them, I think is a great thing
Well,
that you
I
should be doing
think
if
the
you're just
best way
starting out.
you can add value to them, Nick, is when you do talk to them is just shut up. Just listen. Um, just listen. If you learn to ask
That's
the
hard.
right
That's hard. That's
question
hard for us.
and
That's
just
hard
let
for us.
people talk, they will tell you everything you need to know plus more. Uh,
Yeah.
People love to talk and love to talk about themselves. So listen, giving them your full attention and just listen. You'll learn so much about them that will help you in your prospecting and relationship building.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so another thing you said, and I want to get your thoughts on this. Relationships matter, and based on that, I tell me if you think this is true or false. And I think we can have some discussion on this. I think as much as relationships matter, so does social proof. So does social credibility. Um, proving that you've done this, you can do it. And that could be really, really hard, especially if you're just starting out. You don't have the credibility. You don't have the credibility in the market. People don't know who you are. You don't even really know who you are. But generating those proof of results, I think, is something really, really key and almost crucial to being able to get people. Because I think it's one thing to have a relationship with people, but they want to know that you can actually do what you say you can do. And I think that that's something that agents need to do a better job of manufacturing. And I think the way we've manufactured it thus far is, well, I got some Google reviews, and that's great. Get all that. Um, but I think that there are other unique ways, and we'll kind of dive into it here in just a moment. But I'm curious what your thoughts are and how you've kind of solved this riddle with helping get more proof, like proof
Yeah.
of results.
Well, early on in a producer's career, you don't have the proof. You don't have the name. You don't have the brand recognition. You don't have the experience. You don't have the connections. You don't have the relationships. So it's difficult. So, on one side of the pendulum, Nick, I'd say true. But on the other side, I would say false. You've got to start somewhere and build that, and you can still have success without the social proof. So just off the cuff here, I'm thinking about, that's an objection you have to overcome. And every
Mhm.
day we're confronted with different objections when we're selling insurance. And so the, are you experienced enough? Are you old enough? We've got a handful of young producers, 22, 23 years old, who don't have a lot of life experience. And they often get that question on the phone, or they see a picture on an email and be like, hey, am I working with a toddler here? Like, are you experienced? Are you experienced enough my account? And one of the things we do in our producer training program is we spend a lot of time talking about overcoming objections, because it's not just those questions. It's oh, you're not local enough. You're not, this costs too much. All the things we hear every day. And so when you overcome those objections, and we'll go back to uh, there's no social proof. I can't find anything about you. Um, uh, I think you lead with empathy as a new producer, putting yourself in that person's shoes and trying to understand their feelings. I think is one of the greatest skills for a salesperson to develop. For a lot of my career, I thought empathy was weak. I was all about drive, motivation, go, 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 and thought empathy, compassion, that's weak. But as I matured in life and learned some hard lessons, found that, gosh, if you bring in empathy and compassion mixed with the drive and determination, you can have exponential results. So going out there, and oftentimes when you get those objections, like you're too young or you don't have experience, the question to the objection is actually usually something deeper than the question being asked. When people say you're not local, what they're really saying is, how accessible are you? When they're saying, are you too young, you're too young, they're saying, how experienced are you? When they're saying you're not large enough, they're concerned about back end support in the event of a claim. So people often lead with an objection, but there's usually a deeper issue. And when you go to a place of empathy, it allows you to put yourself in their shoes, understand their concern, and then approach it. So, Google reviews, yeah, those are great. We've got a few hundred Google reviews. I don't know about most people. I don't go and look at every Google review when I'm
No,
purchasing something at
I look
all.
at the average and then I
Yeah,
sort by the worst.
exactly. I look at what the worst are and curious if they're just having a bad day, because what tends to happen is people who leave a negative review is because they're selfish. They didn't get what they felt like they deserved, or they didn't take the time to be educated. So 70% of the negative reviews, I feel like, can be thrown out. I personally, I like the negative reviews because, one, it's a learning experience for our team. It allows us to be real and show the world that, hey, we're human, we make mistakes, and let them see how we handled it, and how we respond actually can do more for us than another 5-star review. So having the reviews, having the social proof is great, but not having it is also great, because it gives you a clean slate and opportunity to build the brand that you want to build, and just be real with your clients.
So you think of yourself as an agency owner, or put yourself in that shoe, but also the shoe of a producer. And when you say like empathy is such an important thing, it sounds really good, but I'm going, okay, well, do I have empathy? If I don't, how do I get it? Like, how do I develop that? Where does that
Yeah, I
come
mean,
from?
empathy is difficult to fake. You can't fake
For the long
empathy.
term, for sure.
Right. It has to be developed. You have to practice it. I think it starts with effective listening skills, being vulnerable, sharing your own feelings, sharing your own experience with the prospect, creating a common experience. When you level the playing field and show that you're just like them and share those same feelings, that strengthens, enhances the relationship. And it now gives you that most common denominator that you can go back to and continue to build the relationship off of that pain point. It's just really developing a mutual understanding. And so when you sell based on relationship or relational selling, you have to have some sort of mutual understanding because when you're selling with your friends, it honestly is so much easier to have a hard conversation. When you have a relationship with someone, Nick, and the client calls you and they're upset, it's so much easier to just be real and say, dude, I'm sorry. Here's what happened. Explain to them, walk through, here's the options we have. But when you don't have a relationship, it's a
It's just
they're
transactional.
mad, you're defensive, you're afraid they're going to leave, they're going to leave a negative review. Your friends aren't going to leave a negative review. People that you genuinely care about and have relationships with are only going to want the best for you, and they're going to be the most understanding when things don't go their way if you're empathetic. And it's so much easier to express empathy with people you like and trust, your friends, your solid relationships.
Big reason I think a lot. If you were to poll a lot of producers and you would say, okay, why aren't you selling more? Why aren't you producing more? I think you're gonna run into a few common things that people say. You
Mm-hmm.
might get a lot of producers say, well, you know what, our rates just aren't competitive. We don't win enough business because we just don't have the right carrier mix. Our rates aren't very good, and we're losing out on price a lot. So the price objection.
Yep.
How do you get? How does a producer get over the price objection? What's the best? Like, what are the best ways for them to do that?
Well, I think one of the best ways is asking the right questions. This is just off the cuff here, off the top of my head. But some of the questions I love to ask are questions that make the incumbent agent look like a moron, just completely discrediting the incumbent agent without
Just
even
shred
bringing,
them. Just
just shred
destroy
them.
them.
Uh, one of my favorite questions is, so how did your current agent help you determine what coverages to carry?
Mm-hmm.
It's usually just crickets. It's I
Well,
don't know.
I just got the cheapest one.
Yeah, it was the cheapest. It's what the guy recommended. Like they don't even know their name. It's usually the guy. It's what the guy recommended. It's what my parents had on their policy before I came off and on my own. Like they never had a conversation. So right there now opens the door for a deeper, more meaningful conversation about coverage that you're no longer talking about price. You're talking about really what fits them and their needs. Um, you know, asking the right question. It's interesting when you ask somebody, and on occasion our team will do this. We have one guy who loves asking this question. Somebody calls to buy a new vehicle. He'll ask them, "Oh, what made you buy the 2018 BMW?" Their answer is never, "It was the cheapest car on the lot." They always talk about safety features, gas mileage, benefits, protection for their family, their commute. And so, what you've done right there is you've just changed the whole psyche, the whole mindset of the conversation. You have moved away from price and you're now talking value, benefits, safety. So, all it is asking the right question. It's, hey,
Yeah.
we had that big snowstorm this last weekend. How'd your Tahoe handle the roads? Nobody's going to say, terrible. I'm a high risk. I was sliding over the place. I'm going to hit people. They respond with, oh, it handled great. It's a great vehicle. Again, we've just changed the conversation to safety, value, the reason they have the vehicle they have. It wasn't because of price. And so now we're able to continue that conversation and throughout the quoting process and proposal process, bring everything back to that common denominator of the value, the benefits, the safety features, the gas mileage, the things that are most important to them.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think what you mentioned, asking the right questions. I think another way of framing it too, as you're working with your producers, or if you are a producer watching this, I think you have to get really good at reframing the original problem. So when somebody says, Well, you get on the phone with somebody and you ask them the question, well, what's making you look around today? Like, you've had this policy for 13 years. Why are we looking? Well, I'm just trying to find something cheaper, right? That's what they come in with.
Yep.
How often have we heard that, especially on the personal line side? I'm just trying to find something cheaper. I'm just trying to reshop. If you just take that and run with it, well, then you're just stuck in that vein. But I think if you learn how to then take that and reframe it into the real problem, then you can start to see what's important.
Right.
Well, tell me why. Tell me why that's important. Like why do we want to find? Why is just finding something cheaper? You're going to find something cheaper if we look no matter what. But there's obviously a reason why. Is it because of this? You don't want to assume too much, but you want to try to get into the bigger problem. Because if you solve the bigger problem, you solve the bigger problem, the real problem, then all the other little dominoes underneath fall down.
Yep.
And so I think that's one thing that producers and salespeople, and this is industry agnostic, this is just basic sales stuff. You just learn how to reframe their original problem into, or what the perceived problem into the real problem. Then that's when you can really start to kind of cook with fish grease there and really
Right.
get the conversation
And
moving.
we've got to, as producers, we have to stop asking the question, what coverage do you have? We've got to reframe that to, what coverage do you want? And then let them
Full
talk.
coverage.
Because nobody's going to say, oh, I just want the bare minimum to be legal, because they don't know what that means. They will say, what coverage do you have? They'll say the cheapest. But what coverage do you want? Make them start talking about incidents. Let them see in their mind an accident happening, an injury, medical payments, a need for, asking people, hey, do you know anybody who's ever seriously been hurt in a car accident? Now you get them thinking about, wow, what this really will look like, rather than, I just need the cheapest insurance in town so I can buy a car that I can't afford.
There'll be people who hear that and they're like, "Well, I don't really want to sell based on fear tactics." And I think what you have to understand something. There's two things you're going to buy, and we've kind of we'll use both of these examples: the brand new Mercedes Benz, the physical, tangible thing,
Mm-hmm.
or the insurance policy. Right? People will buy for one of two reasons and one of two reasons only. And if you get this in your brain, then it makes it a lot easier. People will buy, and you will do the same thing. I will do the same thing. This is human nature. We buy things that either help us run towards pleasure and avoid pain, right? Or I'm sorry, we either buy things to run towards pleasure or we buy things to avoid pain.
Right.
That's it. That's the most primitive way you can think about it. So you buy the brand new car, and people say, "Yeah, well, you can't compare insurance to an iPhone or to a car or whatever." You can't, but you can still boil it down to the buying reasons that people have. They run towards pleasure. They want things that indulge pleasure. No one's buying insurance to indulge pleasure. So what do you have to hit on? The notes that you have to hit on, just like if you were baking, you have to put these ingredients in there. You'd say, we're doing this to avoid pain. And the reason why you need this is because we need to avoid pain. And I think if you start to frame it along those lines, so asking those questions that Brandon's talking about, reframing, do you know anybody who's ever been injured in a car accident or had a close scare even? Then I think that helps them make it more tangible in their brain. And now they're making decisions that will help them run away from or avoid pain.
Yeah. Here's one for you, Nick. Here's my favorite question. This is back to the thinking inside the box. This is the most juvenile. And again, all of this is in our producer development program.
So yeah, let's recap the first one. The first one, write down, take out a yellow pad, go through your phone. That's the first one, right?
Yep. Yellow
Okay.
pad, number one. Number two, empathy.
Okay.
3, learning to ask the right questions. But and here's one of those questions that, when we learn to ask the right questions, it doesn't just guarantee getting the sale or improve the chances of getting the sale. It also changes the size of the sale. So, for example, this is extremely juvenile, and I love it. And I can't even tell you how many thousands of dollars of revenue this has created for us. Somebody calls you to add a new vehicle to their policy or coming in for a first-time quote, and they have an SUV. They say they have an F-150. You ask the question, hey, Mr. Prospect, does that F-150, does it have a tow hitch? 100% of the time, the answer is yes. Stupid question. But it now opens the door to ask the follow-up question, what do you tow?
Right.
8 out of 10 times, the answer is nothing. But this is where you learn about the ATVs, the snowmobile, the camper, the trailer, all the other things that are out there. And look around. When you drive down your street in your neighborhood, people have these things. But I hope it's okay to say this. People are dumb. They're not real educated.
I'm dumb.
How many
I'm
times do we hear, "Oh, I thought my ATVs were covered on my homeowner's policy." We hear that sort of thing all the time. "Oh, I thought my boat was covered here." So asking
Misconceptions, right? Misconceptions.
misconception. So we ask, does it have a tow hitch? 100% of the time, the answer is yes. Allows us to ask, what do you tow? 20% of the time, you find out they have something. So now you've just gone from a home and auto policy to home auto third ancillary policy. But
Umbrella
when they
to cover it
say,
all.
I have a boat, now you can ask the question, oh, so do you have a $1 million or a $2 million umbrella? Not, do you have an umbrella? You make the assumption they have an umbrella.
I like that.
8 out of 10 times, the answer is, I don't have an umbrella. We should talk about that. 20% of the time, it's, oh yeah, we have, a 1 million or whatever. So now we just took a 2-star account to a 4-star account. And if you know anything about retention numbers, roughly, if you have a monoline auto policy, stays on the book for 10 to 11 months. If you have home and auto combined, 2.5 years. 3 policies, stays with you for 4.3 years. 4 policies or more, retention goes up to over 13 years. So we've just created customers for life. We've guaranteed revenue and income for the next decade because we asked about the tow hitch. And then the cool part is, people that have boats, guess what their friends have? Boats. People that have campers, their friends have campers. So the referrals you're getting when you do a great job and wow that customer, the referrals you're getting are other 3 and 4-star accounts, rather than homeboy in his apartment referring his, monoline Progressive roommate to you. The same amount of work and effort going into it, and you're quadrupling your revenue and guaranteeing it for the next 13 years by the simple question, does that truck have a tow hitch?
Well, it's a great way of thinking about it. You need to when you ask questions, you're not asking questions for questions need not be reactive things, right? Let me ask questions so that I can then react. You're asking questions in a proactive way. Proactive question asking, that's a what phrase. You're proactively asking questions to lead the conversation. It's like you're leading a dance, or you're the matador. Your
Yep.
questions are the red cape, and you're getting them to run through the red cape. And so there's 2 ways of asking questions. I ask questions because I want to respond and react, or I want to ask questions because it's a setup and I'm leading people. And this isn't manipulative. You're asking, they need to be asked.
Right.
If you're doing your job correctly, these things have to be uncovered. And so you're asking questions to proactively lead the conversation. I think that's great. I want to spin it around here and ask a question. So think about the agency owner who's on the call or watching this replay, and they're thinking, okay, I either need to hire a team or I need to better train the team I have. What are the things? But the agency owners maybe not as act. They're not selling, but they need to be more management. What are some of the things that they need to be doing or can be doing to either recruit people or train the people that they have?
The way I see it is the best way to live life and run your business is by being intentional. So being intentional in recruiting, being intentional in your training, being intentional in the development of your team. Every agency owner is going to be in a different place. Some agency owners are very hands-on in the day-to-day. Others are very distant and removed. And then there's a lot that are in between. And so one of the things I've learned throughout the last year and a half with our program is there's a lot of 1 and 2 man shops, maybe 3 or 4 employees, and the agency owner is still active in producing. And they rely heavily on the agency owner's production just to meet their revenue goals, to cover their overhead. And so for a agency owner to let go of producing to go and hire or to go and train is scary because it stops revenue flow for a month. And so one of the things with our program we did was try to help suppress that. So an agency owner is kind of plug and play. Hey, you're hired, go through this. We'll touch base each day. What are you learning? Figure out how to make it fit into our systems and strategies and allow the agency owner to continue doing what they do. But the flip side is also accurate. I think an agency owner needs to be working daily on growing their business, not in the business, doing those things you just mentioned, being out, recruiting, hiring, taking time each week. It could be a 5 minute pre-recorded video that they send out on Teams or Loom to their team of just simple training. The toe hitch question, just sharing that with their team, giving them something each week to refine their skills, create opportunity, help them understand their role as a risk manager, better. The agency owner could. The truth is, the agency owner needs to do all of those things. When you're a business owner, you are responsible for all that. So, Nick, I remember a couple of weeks ago, you did a post on Facebook about it's often heard that business owners need to hire for their weaknesses and focus on their strengths. I loved your comments, and then reading the other comments on there about, I think an agency owner needs to hire for both. You said that so well, that they need to spend their time developing their team, casting vision, and finding new talent. And that's what an agency owner should be doing. And so I understand the difficulty in that when you're a smaller shop and the agency is heavily relying on the revenue. But let's go. Let's create a game plan to lay out to move you out of that position. What's it going to take, rather than just making it a pipe dream of, hey, someday I hope to be able to focus on vision and recruiting. Let's outline the steps to get there and figure out what it's going to take for you to do what you're supposed to do as an agency owner, and that's run a business.
Yeah. How do you take a producer who's a C level producer and turn them into a B or A level producer?
I really, really like the producers that just hit singles every day, all day. There's some producers out there who hit some home runs. But
Yeah, and let's be clear. An A-level producer isn't someone who's just hitting home runs. I think an A-level producer is someone who is consistently hitting singles and doubles. I'm talking about doing that versus striking out. Right?
Yeah.
Get on base one way or the other. So how do you take people?
I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of answers to this. What I do and what I go back to with our team, I just think recently had an issue with issues. A bit of a statement. Had an individual not performing to their full capability, and it came back to just discipline, time management. So distracted by email and voicemail that we had to create an ideal calendar schedule for them of, hey, here's what you do during this time, and here's what you do during this time. And if you do these things, you'll be successful. And we've seen their curve, the trajectory increase because of the discipline of sticking to the calendar, sticking to the task at hand. I think that honestly is probably the biggest. I think a trained monkey could sell car insurance, but being successful and doing it a lot and growing your business, I think the biggest key to it all is intentional and discipline. Having the discipline to do the same thing consistently over time will generate, large results.
We got about 12 minutes left here. We can take it a little bit longer, but I want to make sure we'll ask a few more questions here. But I'd love to, if you're watching this, I want you to ask your questions. What questions do you have? Part of the benefit of doing this live is that we have collaboration, we have feedback. So if you're like, hey, I'm dealing with this in my agency, or I'm a producer, and this is kind of where I'm seeing some roadblocks, some challenges, I want you to ask that in the chat below. I'm going to ask Brandon that. So we'll probably get into it here, but as I ask him this next question, I want you to start to type that out and think about those questions so that we can feed that to him, and you guys can actually get some help. We can do some cool feedback stuff. So, what would you say are some of the other objections and ways that agents need to overcome objections?
Wow.
At what point do you just say this isn't going to work, and you move on? Right? When is an objection legitimate, and when is an objection something that the producer or the salesperson needs to figure out how to overcome?
For us, you asked two questions there. I'll start with.
I think the second way I asked it was probably the more way I meant it in my brain.
When's the time to say no and let them go?
How do you? Well, not just that, but how do you? It's one thing to say, okay, we talked to these 10 people and we had X amount of people say no, right? These were the objections and why they said no.
Yeah.
When do you say this is a legitimate market objection? Or when do you say, no, we need to how do you know when it's an objection you need to overcome versus this is an actual objection?
Well, I think simply put, we don't ever want to push people to where we want them to be. We want to meet them where they are and lead them. And when there are barriers, roadblocks, or barrier to entry to where we can't get to where they are, I think the best thing is to let them go, refer them elsewhere, find someone else, because the relationship's not going to work. And that, I mean, that could look multiple different ways. I mean, it could be as simple as driving record, underwriting issue, but it also could be the way the client thinks and operates. I remember when I started in the industry and was working on marketing, everything we did was based on demographics. Like our ideal client at the time was, you know, a $300,000 home, teenage drivers. They lived in the suburban area. They were high income earners. Like everything was based on demographics. And if they didn't fit our specific demographic, we would, you know, say no, steer them the other way. Well, here in 2021, we've completely shifted to where our ideal client isn't based on demographics. It's based on psychograph, the way they think, the way they operate. Our ideal clients text message. They use SMS more than they use email. It's so much more efficient for us. It's more efficient for them. There's all kinds of studies out there on, I just saw one earlier this week, 98% of text messages are received. Sorry, 99% of text messages are received. 98% are read in their entirety. And the average response time to a text message is less than 90 seconds. An email, average received rate is 48%, average open read rate is 32%, and the average response time to an email is 27 hours. So one is way more efficient for us when we're working on a task and asking a client a question or engaging, because we know they're going to respond within 90 seconds. But so our ideal client is somebody who texts, and with text, you can have typos, you can use emojis, it's socially acceptable. Email has to be, you know, formally written, thought out, paragraphs, takes more
I hope
time.
you're well in these difficult times.
Yeah, you know, like, and so our ideal client is somebody who's going to text. They think like us. They have the same core values, principles, financial philosophies, and when it comes to their entire portfolio. And so it makes it easy to say no because we're saying yes to the right business. And it always comes back to opportunity cost. Every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to 1,000 other things. And so when you're having that difficulty, like I said a minute ago, where you don't push people to where you are, you want to meet them where they're at. And when that can't happen, that's the moment you need to let them go. And don't let them go. Use compassion and empathy. Guide them to a solution.
Beat it, losers.
Yeah. You know, and there's people that just fall off because they don't respond or don't engage. And
Right.
but don't ever be the agent that they say, hey, I never heard back from them. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. What is there, like, you know, kind of getting a little bit more tangible here? Is there a certain cadence that you would recommend for follow up and response and outreach for producers?
Yeah. Are we talking like a new lead?
Yeah.
New lead. As soon as you get that lead, I'm calling, emailing, and texting within the first 5 minutes. All three got to happen. All studies show that your success rate in reaching that client is based on your initial communication in the first 5 minutes. And so, you know, use SMS. SMS is number one. It's the driving force. And even if the SMS is just, hey, got your information, I just sent you an email, be sure to take a look. Like,
Yeah.
give them direction on what to do. The email can be a more thorough introductory. Here's who we are. Here's what we're about. Keep that brief. They don't really care who you are, what you're about. They have a
Choppy.
problem that they need
Yeah.
solved.
Keep it choppy.
Make it about them at this stage, and then pick up the phone and call them. Or
That's a revelation.
yeah, it's the number of agents that don't pick up the phone and follow up with leads is mind blowing. But that's in the first 5 minutes, and then within 24 hours, I'm sending a second text that is just a simple, "Hey, I sent you an email yesterday. Did you get it?" Like, I just want a yes or a no. As soon as they respond, now you have them hooked. That creates engagement. Make it simple for them to understand. Don't ask all the questions to get a quote. You want to build a relationship, and the first way to do that is to get them to just respond to you. So I'm a huge fan of automation, follow-up campaigns. With our online lead management, we have 19 different touch points over the first 45 days, and it's proven time and time again. Between the 6th and 9th touch point, about 90% of the leads we've made contact with, very few of them go all the way through the 45-day sequence. But again, it comes back to the two things we've talked about over and over on this call: intentionality and discipline.
Intentionality and discipline.
Doing the small things.
That's awesome. So again, if you are, oh, I didn't want to do that one. I think we want to do this one. Are you there, Brandon?
Yep, I'm here.
Perfect. So again, if you have not, let me minimize this so you can actually see what we're doing here. If you are a producer or an agency owner, I would strongly, if you're an agency owner, buy this for your team. Buy this for yourself. If you're a producer, buy this. I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to buy a couple for better from Better Agency, and I'd like to send them to a few folks. So if you want that, go ahead and comment down below. We'll see what we can do. I'd like to sponsor a few of these books and get them in the hands of some folks. I can think of some agents and producers and agency owners now who are new to the industry, and that I'd like to put this in their hands and make sure that they start using it. So you can go to producerdp.com is it 2022?
2022.
$40.
No, thank you for that, Nick. If anybody watching this wants multiple copies for their multiple planners, you can see right there in red. The way that platform works, because of the video training course provided, we have to do it manually on the back end. So shoot me an email, brandon@producerdp.com, and we can send you a back end invoice for the quantity you desire at with a bulk rate. Honored, super pumped to get this out, get in people's hands. Got the prototype started coming in this week.
Nice.
And
That's
super
beefy.
pumped. It is. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So excited to see how this impacts agents this next year.
That's awesome. So make sure you guys get your copy there. Brandon, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Agency Tactics, and we will see you guys soon. Again, go to the website and check it out. Also, if you are looking to find more information about Better Agency, go to our website. Book a demo. Just book a demo with Better Agency. Talk to our team. We'd love to show you around, show you under the hood, and see if it's a good fit for your agency. Other than that, guys, we are going to see you guys next time. Now I got to figure out how to. I'm going to end this stream here. All right. Take it easy.